Please welcome Julianne Snow.
Hello, has everyone enjoying their evening? Great. Okay, so I'm going to read a small little excerpt from my story that is inside the anthology called There Is No Wind That Always Blows. The lucky got used to the constant wail of the wind. Maguire Redding could call himself one of the lucky few, but considering what the world had turned into, luck was a relative term. It's been said that if a butterfly flapped its wings in Paris, the gentle disruption would become a gale-force wind by the time it reached New York City. What if 100 butterflies all fluttered their wings in unison? 1,000? 100,000? What manner of chaos would befall the world if conditions lined up for an actual test of a theory? It's been 1,689 days since the wind started. The landscape bore the marks of the great scouring that took place. No one knew the true extent of the destruction beyond what they had seen with their own eyes. Buildings were damaged, many of them brushed off the face of the earth, forever by the sheer force of the never-ending winds that buffeted and howled around each corner. It was an eerie sound, like a scream. It settled deep within the subconscious, and if it couldn't be blocked out, it drove you mad. Maguire had seen it, the look one got before the wind broke them. It started in the eyes, with a hollowness that drew you in, culminating in a subtle smile that tugged at the corners of their mouths, before erupting in a violent wave of aggression that could kill if you got too close. Once the insanity took hold, there was no coming back. Better to let the wind take them completely. Many were lost that way, shoved past the outer doors of the compound they were into the thrashing arms of Mother Nature. Their screams would sound for a moment before being replaced by the rush of the air currents as they were stolen away. It was always sad, pathetic really, but there was nothing that could be done. The wind had robbed them of so much already, and for those who fought tooth and nail to survive, they were willing to sacrifice the week for another day. Back in the beginning, it had started with a persistent wind that experts couldn't explain, a quickening of the currents that defied all logic, becoming stronger with each passing hour. It took only a few weeks for communications to break down, the towers that held the dishes and receivers in place succumbing to the force of the wind one by one. Some remained standing, their support rooted firmly in the ground, but now they leaned, their signals silenced. Anything simply placed on the ground was fair game to the winds that eddied across the land. Garbage pails, bicycles, benches, hot dog carts, cars. If it wasn't bolted down, the wind picked it up and took it away. Buildings began to buckle under the steady assault. Trailer parks disappeared, slums disintegrated as their makeshift walls sliced through the air. Roofs were torn off their walls and walls were separated from their foundations. All of the debris swirling and whipping around pockmarked the facades of larger, more substantial buildings before blowing out to sea, lost forever to the depths. As the wind worked to strip the planet of what was built upon it, it was unsafe to venture outside. Those who had not been caught completely unaware and in the open hunkered down, reinforcing where they were with what they had on hand. Basements became havens, the subways home to those who could hide themselves from the deadly currents that occasionally snaked the tunnels, and the inner rooms of many well-constructed buildings housed those who found their way inside before it was too late. With windows boarded against the assault and supplies out of food and water dwindling, some had to venture outside. It took 41 days before it was a necessity for Maguire and the 26 other people who had hidden themselves in the basement of their office building, located in an industrial park just outside the city. Housed in the same building with them was a sporting goods store with a few pallets of bottled water and more than enough protein bars and packages of trail mix to get them through the early days. Across the street from them was a distribution center for a large grocery chain, but they had no idea in what condition the building or its contents would be in. The only thing they were sure of was the direction the building lay from their door to the outside world. Their first plan failed. 6 people went out into the winds, and none of them returned. It was their first clue to the strength of the windstorm that had taken control. More planning went into the next time they ventured outside, and while it was a success overall, they still lost one to the gusts. The trip was an eye-opening experience for those who could see what was beyond the concrete walls they now called home. Getting across the expanse was a difficult feat, made harder by the ropes that anchored them to their building, and the necessity of securing a line between them and the warehouse they sought. Boeing light standards became landmarks, lengths of rope wrapped around them before moving on to the next solid structure they could find. Getting to the warehouse took hours, the wind throwing them off balance more than once and sapping their precious strength. But they got there and found the warehouse to be the hub of a much greater group of people. While it had taken 40 days for McGuire and his group to venture into the unknown, it had taken other groups of survivors less time to come to the conclusion they needed food, water, and information. Approaching the door to the warehouse, McGuire and his team could see two things: other ropes leading away from the door, and a crudely painted sign on its surface: "Please knock before entrance." With his hand poised over the metallic surface, the surprise of the door swinging inward caused him to take a quick step back. Silhouetted in the frame was another man wrapped up against the elements. With a sudden jostling of the group outside, the moment of surprise was broken by Lily's scream of panic. She'd lost her footing in the shuffle and was swept a short distance away by the wind. The rope coiled around her only saving grace. Tension on the ropes linking them together threw each of them off balance, a chain reaction of falls that might have been comical if it hadn't meant potential death. Curtis, panicking and calling out for help over the roar of the wind, sought to untie himself, not wanting to be pulled away with the rest. Succeeding meant his death, but his mind wasn't able to see that. Coming up short as their collective rope pulled taut around a nearby light standard, McGuire was finally able to catch his breath despite the force of the wind pulling the rope tighter across his chest. He looked up to see his team, the effort difficult against the current of the wind. "Curtis!" The words were stolen by the wind the moment they left his lips. "Curtis, stop! You'll be swept away!" Fighting to be heard over the wind's howl, McGuire could only watch the scene upwind from him as Curtis picked at the knot on his side. It seemed like an eternity, struggling for the strength to stand before Curtis was able to release himself. And when it was over, Curtis's body slid past him over the scrubbed surface of the asphalt, and arms failing, looking for something to grab hold of, but finding nothing. Looking back to the door, McGuire could still see the man watching as the events unfolded before him. The lure of the open door was inviting, and somewhere he found the strength to stand against the wind, helping the remaining team to their feet, all of them slowly making their way back to the door of the warehouse.